With design as timeless as Michelangelo's David and a pedigree as solid as a Harvard education, the Porsche 911 is not just an automobile, it's an institution. And unlike the statue and college degree, this model, the GTS, gets bargain pricing, if a car starting at around $122,000 can be described that way.
GTS costs about $15,000 more than a Carrera S model, but adds a lot of gear that many 911 owners would buy anyways.
Effectively, that $15,000 buys $22,000 worth of kit. That includes the Sport Chrono package, deeply bolstered sport chairs, active sport suspension, and sport exhaust. The rear track is wider by about 1.5 inches. You can't even get these 20-inch centerlock wheels on the Carrera S. Because the coupe rides a skosh lower than the Cabrio and Targa GTSs, I suggest the $2,600 lift kit, all totaled up with optional all-wheel drive and carbon ceramic brakes. This Carrera 4 GTS goes for less than an Ivy League education at $158,000. And with a 0 to 60 mile an hour time of under 4 seconds, it does go.
My goodness, this car just absolutely connects with your soul.
Other automakers use electric power steering. Few pull it off as well as Porsche. There's good feel through the wheel, and lateral grip in corners is Herculean. And if for some reason you become bored, the G-forces can be monitored.
Starting with the low-profile tires, this is not a cushy ride, and it's not expected. Buick will be happy to sell you a LaCrosse.
Dial the adjustable suspension back from the firmest setting I have it in, and the 911 is quite fine for daily duty. It's surprising a car with nearly 2/3 of its weight towards the back can be so confident in the corners. The 3-liter twin-turbo flat 6-cylinder engine hiding under here offers up 450 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque in a very usable range.
That's an additional 30 horses and 37 pound-feet of torque over the Carrera S model. The engine is the same size, it's just the GTS uses bigger turbos.
Higher boost, too. The standard gearbox is a 7-speed manual. The PDK dual-clutch 7-speed automatic is $3,700.
Now, if this had the PDK transmission, it would have launch control that maximizes every takeoff, but we'll be doing it old school here.
The gates of the manual are a bit narrow, but those wanting a third pedal will celebrate that Porsche makes this available. The sport exhaust provides extra growl, or it can be set to a more neighbor-friendly tone.
There are some that are frustrated with the sound of the new turbocharged engines, or lack of. I don't know. It's not as if it sounds like a Toyota Corolla. The shift action of the manual transmission, it's about as good as money can buy, but there is also the brilliant PDK dual clutch. You really can't go wrong with either box, but don't let anybody talk you into one or the other. Make sure you get what you want. It's a personal preference.
There's so much torque in the turbo engine, one could just keep it in third gear during a twisty section. I just can't help rowing through the gears.
This car is so easy to drive, nearly telepathic.
On public roads, it's hard to know how much difference the active sway bars of the Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control makes. Would love to explore the dynamic on the track. I would definitely spring for the $2,100 rear axle steering.
Between the bolstering and the Alcantara fabric, these seats are like Velcro. Oh, this car just eats up corners. This is so much fun. All right, back to the dual clutch transmission. If this car had it, there would be a sport response button here that gives 20 seconds of extra turbo power. You don't get it with the manual transmission. That's one reason to go with the PDK.
Fuel economy, it's what you'd expect from a powerful sports car. I saw 19 miles per gallon on specified premium. Hey, if you can afford a 911, gas shouldn't be a problem.
The emphasis is always on power with these cars, but it's the brakes that will save your bacon.
And because they're so good, this guy won't be venison bacon. Moving on to the cockpit, it's pure Porsche, simple, Teutonic, full of high-quality materials that look and feel expensive. Keep in mind, this is the upgraded leather interior package that runs $3,800. Even though the cup holders are positioned awkwardly, you have to admire the effort put in by the engineers. Porsche redesigned its user interface recently, and it's a big improvement. Spend a week with it, and operation becomes fairly intuitive. And if not, there's Apple CarPlay, but not Android Auto.
Here's a sight gag that proves this space is not for adults.
Like all 911s, this is for very young children, those with cell phones, I suppose, or adults you want to torture, or, more realistically, extra luggage space for long trips.
I've established in other reviews that 911 isn't exactly the cargo king, but what the heck, I've got other shopping to do, so let's do the test.
Standing in for 2 carry-on-sized suitcases is something inherently more humorous. Remember, there's always that back seat area. Do I like this car? Absolutely, and I would hope so. Porsche has refined and fussed over the 911 since 1964, and it's not cheap. At least the GTS offers a bit of a break on the pricing, so if you're trying to sell your frugal spouse on one of these, you might give that sales pitch a try. If you can't have a Michelangelo in your yard, this classic in the garage could be the next best thing. Most certainly, this car at over $150,000 as tested is expensive, but think about the price of a Ferrari. The least expensive Portofino, which takes over for the California T, starts at around $210,000, and on paper, it and the Porsche seem well matched performance-wise. Of course, if you want the extroverted design of the Italian, well, you're going to have to cough up the extra money. I may have told this story before, but I was at Pebble Beach last year talking with the designer of the Bugatti Chiron, and he was fawning over its elegant transition from the C-pillar to the rear flanks, and he used the 911's design as the inspiration of perfect execution. Yes, both companies are part of the Volkswagen Group, but the flattery seemed very sincere.
I'm on record as saying that my favorite Porsche is the Cayman S. There's just something about the mid-engine design that really speaks to me, but after spending a week with this, money no object, I may have to rethink that. We may have to revive that Buy Tom a Porsche funding site. I think that's a great idea. That's Driven. I'm Tom Voelk.